Okay, so I think the best thing to do is to really see a real example of creating a recipe, and we're gonna do this in the kind of mock up my project app that we've been working with. Um, and I kind of off screen. I did do one quick thing, the catch the mock up my project up to date with our recipes app. I just put in those. Let's go to VS Code. I put in those relationships that we had already created back in like parts, like video 38, 39 in that area. But let me just show you that so you can see those. And then I went ahead and made the migration. So in recipes, I added in columns for title and author. And then I added in that relationship of author. And then the back reference here with user, I added in the relationship recipes. So we have that one-to-many relationship going on there, and then I made the migration. And in TablePlus, let's bring that over. So in TablePlus, I'm looking at my project database. I went ahead. There's the migration, so you can see recipes. You can see users, and I just stuck in 3 users just so I would have something to display on the screen. But what we want to do is we want to build the whole get, post, redirect, that life cycle, and see that through that form we're actually able to create recipes. So that's, to me, that is kind of the objective here. So we'll do that in our app. I've already got our app running. So you can see I haven't done anything besides what I just talked to you about. Now, I do have this extra tab open, which is Flask-WTF. Flask-WTF is a way to validate forms, and it's really helpful. I use it all the time. It also can even add extra layer of protection on your entire website. I use that. I highly recommend it. It's very useful, but it's above and beyond the scope of what we're trying to teach here for Flask Commands. Flask Commands, just getting that data structure flowing and wired up in your app. And so I'm going to avoid Flask WTFs, but I just wanted to mention it to you. So if you are going to carry on and actually make Flask applications in production, then you absolutely definitely have to look at some kind of validation on your forms and protection, because you don't want things like cross-site reference, weird stuff like that. So there's CSRF protection through Flask WTF, but for demonstration purposes and learning purposes of how this process works, we're going to keep it very simple. Okay, so enough about that. Let's go here. So I have 2 routes. I actually have 3 routes: recipes, create. So, and then we have a post route, which we can't get to through the browser because browsers only do get routes. The post route will come when we create the form, and we'll tell it to use a post method. And its route is also recipes. Okay, so let's go here. We can see these 3 methods that we have: the create, the store, and the index. And here are the routes over here. I bump this up just one. Here are the routes. So the recipes has both a post and a get, and then the create is a get. And then our templates are very simple right now. They just have this thing that is kind of verb that comes in from when you create your template. So the first things first, let's go to the index and let's, instead of having to change the URL constantly, let's put in a link to create a new recipe. So we'll do an anchor tag with an href and then URL4. And then this is what I really liked about Flask Commands is wanted the naming convention to just flow. You typed in recipes.create, and that's what you should call it in your template right there. So it mirrors the same naming convention. So we'll make a new recipe. Okay, so now, and I love seeing things happen live. So I will go like that. All right, so now when we go here, let's go like this. All right, so we can now click here, and it takes us to our create page. And let's get a back button. I mean, that always seems helpful. So we'll kill this, and we will put a anchor tag, a href with go back to recipes. Do that. Now, right now, it won't actually do anything if we click it. So let's wire it up. URL4, and then this is recipes.index. So now I can actually navigate between the two. Boom, boom. And you can see the URL is changing. Now, let's list on the index page, let's list all the recipes that we have. So in the controller, under the index page, I need to provide the index page with all the recipes. So we'll go recipes equals recipe dot query dot all. And then here we will, everything, you can see everything on one line. We are going to do this, recipes equals recipes. So we are sending the template. Things you put in here are what you send the template. So now in the index page, I actually have reference to recipes. Boom. Now, right now it's an empty array, so there's nothing there. And we know that from here, from our database, there's nothing in there. So the goal is to get things in here. Let's make this really simple. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to, and I even say like earlier, like at this point in your app, don't try to make things look pretty. You're not trying to win a beauty pageant. You are just trying to get content in your database, and so we are going to iterate over all the recipes. So for recipe in recipes, we are, and then an end for. So if you haven't seen Jinja 2, this is Jinja 2 notation that you're seeing. This right here is out making a print statement around the variable that we're sending, and this is basically kind of like coding in Jinja 2. It's iterate. This is our for loop that we would normally use in Python, so kind of similar to Python. But we would use this end for in Python, but Jinja 2 does require that. So yeah, it's just a little bit of Jinja 2 notation. So we're going to have an unordered list with list items, and then right now I actually have access to recipe. So I have in here recipe.title, and we'll do the author of that recipe. So recipe.author, and that is going to be a user. So you can have access to anything on the user model, which in our case we have username. Okay. Now, right now I should see absolutely no change whatsoever. This is kind of cool, actually. If you haven't seen this before, you can do an else in here, which is like else. Wait a minute. Else is like with if, but you have a for, Drew, on there. Well, in Jinja 2, the else is, hey, you have an empty array, which is what we currently have. So let's do a list item, and we'll say no recipes yet. Okay, so we actually get no recipes yet. Let's get rid of this. We don't need it. All right, so this is our feedback for our user. They are going to go create the recipe through a form through here, hit submit, and then they're going to be navigated back to the index page where they will see the new recipe that they just created. And that is that. So we are coming here, we're going to post the form, and then we're going to redirect back here. So that is the idea in a real application. We're almost there. So what we need to do is we need to go wire up the form now. So let's make a form. So in order to make a form, let's give it a little header, H2 maybe, and this will be the create recipe form. This is as fancy as I am going to get. So let's go to that page so you can actually see it. So create recipe form. All right, so we're actually going to make a form. Okay, so now in a form, you put a method. So this is a method, and this method that we're going to use is the post method. So we tell it we're using a post method, and we need to give it an action, which is very similar to our href in an anchor tag. So the action is go to this URL. And where do we want to send the form? We want to send the form to store. We're on create right now. We're in the create, and we want to send it to store, and store is going to actually create a new recipe and then redirect back to the index. Okay, so that is URL for, and then recipes.store. So let's see that. All right, so now let's make the form. Well, what do we need for a recipe? Right now, if we come to TablePlus, we don't need a lot. We need a title and an author, and then the created at and updated at, they're going to happen automatically for us because of the way that we created those columns in the model. Okay, so let's do two divs. So kind of two blocks. This one is going to be for my title, and this div is going to be for my author. All right, so now I need a label, And if you use Flask-WTF, this actually becomes a lot quicker, faster, easier. You don't have to type as much. So we need a label. So the label will be for title. And this will say title, colon. And then we need an input. And inputs are what I call self-closing, whereas this one has a beginning tag and an end tag. This just has one tag, self-closing. So a type is going to be text. So, and the name is going to be title, and the ID is going to be title. Okay, a lot of titles. What happens here is by doing this way, when you click here, the browser knows to go in here. So let's just say variables. I'm a math teacher, right? So we love X. So if I called that X and not that X, this would still work. The name is what's going to come over as the key in the immutable dictionary when we do the post. Let's not call it X though, because that's just weird. We'll call it title. But just so you know, these two are lining up, and then this is the key for that immutable dictionary that's going to come over. All right. If you haven't seen, just think of the word dictionary. If you haven't seen dictionary, that's a key value pair. So we'll actually see that. I'll show you that as we bring it over. All right. So then now let's come in and let's do the author. Now with the author, I'm going to do a select. So we'll put the label. Let's do the label here. And this is going to be author ID. So, or we'll just call it author. Author. But I need a list of all the users. And so I need to be able to do this for user in users. But if I do this, watch, I'm going to get a big ugly error. Okay, it's going to break. I thought it was going to break. It should break if I do this. What we're going to do is it'll break once I start actually trying to use it. So let's do select name equals author ID. ID is equal to author. So the ID and the 4 need to match. So if you wanted to call it author ID everywhere, you can do that. Just make sure you do it here too. Okay, and then let's bring this down. And these are going to be my options. So my authors are going to be my users. So option. And then value is going to be user. Here's where I should break. User.id. Because I don't have a user. Because I have users, but I haven't sent that to the browser. And then user.username. Okay. Boom. Break. Nope. Didn't break. That's funny. Surprised it didn't break. Should. But that's good. I guess it didn't break. If it had broken, it would break because it's like yelling that, hey, I don't know what users is. It shouldn't know what users is. It should be like, that's a variable that we don't have. But we do have users, and they're in here. We have 3 users, and I just randomly made up names here, Drew, Tom, and Sue. So let's see that we can get that list of Drew, Tom, and Sue here. Since it didn't break, let me finish out the form. The only thing we need is a button to submit the form. So type is a submit button, and we will say create the recipe. Boom. All right. So I'm gonna leave it. It's gonna look like this. I'm not trying to win any beauty pageants. I'm just trying to get a recipe in our database from the browser. So let's go to the controller. So for the create, the one thing that I need to send over is my users. So users equal users dot query dot all. And I don't have user here, so I need to import it from my user model. And I need to pass it along. Users equals users. Okay, now there we go. We got all 3 users right there. Perfect. Okay, so now if I fill this out and say Drew's gonna make pizza and press create recipe, I'm actually going to do the post and I still have no recipes because it would have shown my recipe here. So my database is still blank. Here, if I go to recipes, refresh, I have no recipes, which is okay. Let's go here. What I really like is seeing in one of your tabs, you actually have all the requests that are coming through. This is a really great place for testing out stuff. If you're like, things aren't working really the way you want them or expect them to work, this is a nice place to see what's happening. So let's go back to the controller, and the magic is going to happen here in the store. So we've seen the get the page, post the page, and redirect back to index. That's actually working. The only thing that's actually not working at this point is storing the data. So let me just show you where this is. So if you can put a print in here, and you can print request.form. Okay. So where's request coming from? Request is actually from Flask. So if you type in request, then now come over here. We are going to see the data. Let's see the data. So pizza, create it, and there it is. There's the print statement right there, and you see it in we did a get to recipes, and then we ran that controller method, and then when it did the post, and then so this kind of, actually in my mind this happens first, and then this should have printed, but the terminal's spitting out in this order, and then we did the get back to recipes, and that's where we are here. But the cool thing is I see, hey, there's the title, it's pizza, there's the author ID, it's 1. So that's all I need to make a recipe. So let's get those values, and then let's create the recipe. And now this is where Flask WT forms really is helpful. And if you're using this in production, you would absolutely use Flask WT forms here. But just for demonstration purposes, I am going to get them straight out of here from the immutable dictionary. I'm going to grab that title, grab that author, and you can do it this way. Actually, you can just say give me the title, and let's get rid of that. Oops. And give me the author ID. And if you want, it's always nice to print these out. Let's see what we have. One thing I need, though, is I want to make sure this is an integer, because I'm going to ask for that user with this ID, and I expect that to be an integer when I ask for the user. So let's just print this real quick. Let's print both of these. Make sure that we have what we are expecting. We'll put our terminal here. Here, I'm just going to split this. Okay. So let's do pizza again. And boom. There we are. Pizza and 1. Okay, let's go back. And let's make the recipe. So I'm going to assign these to values. And let's assign this to title and this to user. Oops. This to user ID. And then let's get the user. So user is equal to user.query.get user ID. So I now have my user. And then let's make my recipe. So it's going to be recipe is equal to recipe. So the model. And then we can use that relationship that's built onto the model and just say, well, the author for this recipe is user, and the title is going to be title. And right now, recipe is a thing, but is a thing in memory only. It is not in the database. So the model comes with this really nice store in database. So you can just use that method. And it's now in your database. So let's check it out. And so if I come over here to the browser and I type in pizza, when I hit create, I have Drew has a pizza. Drew has a recipe for pizza, and maybe Tom is going to have a recipe for salad. And there we go. And so now if I go to my database and refresh it, what's cool too here is the timestamps that you see. You can see they're even like slightly different because we did them over just a second different. So yeah, you have a functioning workflow for creating a new recipe, and that is really the whole, let's go back here, that is the real world example of a recipe.create and recipe.store. That's that life cycle, get, post, redirect. So hopefully get, post, redirect really makes sense now. And in the next video, we'll move on to the next section. See you in the next video.